Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of May 11th. I'm still Michael James. I'm still up here in the 49th Ward. And last week, I gave a little bit of a shout out to the Free Street Theater, which was putting on a play called Mothering the Movement over at Pulaski Park on Blackhawk, 1419 West Blackhawk. And just so happens that my granddaughter, Ida Rocket, was in the play as a member of the Free Street Theater's youth ensemble. And I went to the play along with my wife, Paige, and we had a really nice time seeing the play, seeing our granddaughter and my daughter, Coya Paz, who happens to be very much involved with Free Street Theater. And I thought it would be good to get her to come on today to give a brief bit of information about Mothering the Movement and the person who is really key to the whole thing, Hazel Johnson of the People for Community Recovery. So, Koya, it's great to see you again.
Hi.
And I know you've been very busy with the academics at DePaul, and there's demonstrations going on over there. You got your plate full with the Free Street Theater. So tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about the particular play, Mothering the Movement and Free Street Theater.
Yeah, so I'll start with Free Street so that people understand how Mothering the Movement fits in. So, Free Street, we're in our 55th year. We were founded in 1969, and our work has changed a lot over the years, of course, because the city changes a lot over the years. But fundamentally, we're committed to thinking about how performance can be a tool in a larger strategy to challenge Chicago's racial and economic segregation and the sort of parcel of injustices and inequities that come with that segregation. I want to say, like at Free Street, we do not believe that theater itself is activism, which sometimes people really get mad about. But I think, as you and so many of your listeners know, activism is part of a strategy, right? It has a target, it has a goal. There's something measurable we're trying to accomplish. And so we like to think about how we can partner with environmental justice organizations, with racial justice organizations. We added environmental justice to our mission 2 years ago, formally, after making 6 plays in a row about environmental justice. And Mothering the Movement is the latest. And I love it so much, especially in this moment where I think a lot of people are feeling kind of a despair about what is happening in the world. We just seem to be in this crisis. I know many of my students and the young people I work with feel like their voices are not being listened to. That's why we're seeing encampments everywhere. This is why we're seeing a sort of like renewed outrage about like, is our government representing our people? And in this show, which is made by 14 to 19-year-olds, you have a bunch of young people looking at the work of Hazel Johnson, who is often was dubbed the mother of the environmental justice movement. She lived in a place called Altgeld Gardens and realized that people were disproportionately dying of cancer and other diseases that were the result of illegal industrial waste dumping. Which is really like a common problem on the south side of Chicago, but especially in what she dubbed the toxic donut. They were kind of surrounded by industrial waste. And so she was a huge activist in organizing against those things. The work continues with her daughter, Cheryl Johnson, and People for Community Recovery in Altgeld Gardens. And I just love seeing young people talking about how important it is to think about being a part of a movement. And they use mothering as this beautiful frame. They say, actually, your granddaughter says it, right? That mothering not as like a biological or gender construct, but mothering as this idea of like, you have to grow movements, right? That these have to be sustained. We have to think about how we're going to nurture people for the long haul. I think about how your collections are often, like photographs from the long haul, right? Like we're not in this for a one-time thing. We're in it for a lifetime. And so what does that look like? And it's just nice to see young people really like owning that and thinking about how they want to have an impact on the world.
Well, they seem to have a really good time doing the play, and afterwards there was a lot of joy. Um, how do you recruit the young kids that are involved? I'm sure that the way Ida got involved was through you, but there's a lot of other kids, and they're
It's a really multinational, if that's still a correct word or not sure anymore. But a lot of different people representing the kind of rainbow makeup of Chicago. And it was good to see them all together. How do you find these kids?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of show up, like we do recruit. Free Street, about half of our work is with young people, and half of our work is multi-generational with people in the communities. We have a space at Pulaski, and we have a space in back of the yards. And, our commitment is really to show up in the communities we serve. And that includes like the environmental justice community, racial justice, organizing. And, I think a lot of people find out about us through that. They trust us through that. We also collaborate with schools. We do educational partnerships. I don't run the youth program. That's Katrina Dion, who's our current artistic director. Um, but, I think, and usually when young people come, they stay. I think people find it a really like rejuvenating place. Our mutual relative, your granddaughter, my daughter, was actually really reluctant to join at first. I think because I work there and I do a lot of work there, and she's kind of grown up around Free Street. I think there was a part of her that thought maybe she wanted a little bit of space. But like many young people in her generation, she's really passionate about environmental justice as like a hugely pressing issue for young people who are inheriting this world that has been kind of devastated ecologically. And so she decided, why not? I'll get involved. And now she loves it. She wants to stay.
Well, Koya, how would you, in a sentence, define environmental justice or injustice?
Well, I think that when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about sort of creating communities that are equitably healthy. Right now, most industrial waste, dumping, pollution, factories, anything you can imagine that's creating sort of environmental harms to communities gets kind of shuttled to the south and west side, actively moved out of the north side to the south and west side where in parts of the South Side, people have a life expectancy that's 20 years lower than people on the North Side. And that's after you disaggregate gun violence. Because I think sometimes people think like, oh, well, there's more violence in those communities. But that actually, so you take those statistics out, people are still more likely to die of asthma, of pollutant related diseases. 20 years is a huge thing. So environmental justice is really about trying to balance that, to remove these harmful industries from communities of color, and think about like how can we have equitable distribution of waste, and how can we build towards a world where we're not producing so much toxic waste.
Well, there's a lot of ways to remove. Uh, you know, you have a permanent home on Blackhawk at Pulaski Park, but I know that you have an office now over on South Ashland. And I've seen Free Street Theater do plays in a number of settings, some in parks outside, etc. How about telling us about where you do your plays and how people can see Mothering the Movement while it's still running?
Yeah, so actually, our space on Ashland, in back of the yards, is a performance space too. We do
Uh-huh.
performance there. We just did There's a Future, which is a show I directed about environmental organizing. We actually have a bus that will be taking people from our back of the yard space up to see Mothering the Movement on the 18th. If people can find out about that and all of the shows at freestreet.org, which is our website. But we really we joke that we're theater for people who hate theater. Nothing about our work is super formal. We really try to be an invitation because we think that's our role as artists and storytellers, is that we can help hold these stories and uplift them, but we can also create inviting spaces that make people want to learn more and get involved with the organizations that are doing the real work.
So, what are the actual dates that people can see it? They can see it Friday, May 11th, 7 to 8 p.m. at 4627 South Ashland. And is that the 10th or the 11th?
We are not doing a show at South Ashland anymore. So we were
Huh.
originally going to perform there, but as you've seen the show, the set is this like really beautiful kind of S curve picnic table, and we decided that's where we would bus people up
Oh, I
to.
get it. So what nights can people go see the play or what days?
Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays through May 18th. And maybe if enough people show up, we'll extend.
Oh, that would be great. Hopefully, the masses who are listening will turn out.
The
Uh,
masses, and everything we do is free or pay what you can. We really do not want
and you
economic.
got a bunch of new swag. I know my wife Paige came home with a new hat. Uh,
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about, you just mentioned the set and the stage, which has people sitting around this S shape. I wondered if that was an S or a money sign.
An S, not a money sign.
And is
Yeah.
that just a way to fit everything into the room, or how did you come up with that shape of that stage?
I'll say that was the director and the scenic designer's decision. I wasn't a part of that decision, but my guess is that it creates the sense that we're all at a table together. It was a way to get as much of the audience as close as possible to create this feeling of community in this storytelling.
Well, Coya Paz, I'm going to throw one more thing at you because I know you teach it to Paul, and
Mhm.
I know there's demonstrations going on over there. I get alerts when something's happening because I teach there. But why don't you give a 30-second report on what you know about the DePaul encampment?
I mean, like many universities across the country, students are saying, we do not believe in the death and destruction that's happening in Palestine. It doesn't seem like calling representatives or, other forms of protests have been working. So they're focusing, like, people did around apartheid, we're going to focus on divestment, trying to get universities to pull out economically from this war. And that's what they're doing. I'm really proud of any young person who takes a stance that they really believe in. So it's nice to see people, they're out there in the rain in tents. I spoke to one student. I said, "What do you need?" And they said, "Well, we're cold and we're traumatized, so we need like a little bit of love." So if you are inclined to just send love to these student protesters across the country, I think they really need the encouragement.
Well, Coya Paz, it's great to see you again, twice in 1 week, one time in up close, this time close, but it's on a Zoom.
Yeah.
And say hello to your daughter, my granddaughter, Ida Rocket, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.